Oh, what a January winter it's been for 1.5 days out of the month. And what you are seeing is actually from Thursday, Friday. And now it is just cold. There's snow, but there was sun, so it's melting. And tomorrow it's going to go upward. And this week it's going to be back in the 40s again, and all this snow will be gone, except on this loop, which is kind of cool. Yes, we're in the middle of January, so why not a January meltdown? Only halfway into the month, and already I'm freaking out because every story is the same. Every week, it's the same issues. But we can't ignore them, can we? It's time to go inside and get ready for Dumpster Times number 29. Can you believe it? Yes, we're back where we started. We're going to start with the story that continues to horrify those of us with empathy, compassion for other human beings, and that is the war on the Palestinians. It is not a war between Israel and Gaza. There's no equity there. All right, I'm going to superimpose myself over this image of politicians being questioned by reporters, as well they should be. There's not enough questioning going on. So, growing number of Senate Democrats question Biden's Israel strategy. I question the fact that he has a strategy because nothing is working there except more and more people dying, more hospitals. The last hospital in Gaza, in Palestine, was destroyed this week. There are no more hospitals. People are being operated on with no anesthetics. It's just ghastly. I'm amazed that there are still people left who know how to operate in Gaza. The official count is 25,000 plus, but we know that there are many more who have died and who are on the verge of dying from starvation and disease. It's terrible. So what have we got? 5 Senate Democrats on Friday signed on to a measure that would condition aid to Israel on its compliance with international law, bringing the total number of co-sponsors to 18. Wow. It's like pulling teeth from a hippopotamus. And a prominent Democrat, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, remember him? Hillary's running mate, him of the boring middle corporate Democrats. He is now rounding up support for his amendment to stop President Biden from circumventing Congress when he orders weapons transfers to Israel, a maneuver the president has pursued twice in recent months. And if you haven't been paying attention to that, yes, Biden is taking responsibility for getting those weapons to Israel. Genocide Joe, Genocide Joe. Where did you go, Genocide Joe? Where did your conscience go? Where did your deep love of human life and respect as a Catholic go, huh, Genocide Joe? Surely you know where those weapons are going and who they're going to kill. Genocide Joe. Okay, so we got what, 18 earlier this week, 11 senators voted for a bill by Senator Bernie Sanders aimed at forcing the Biden administration to examine potential human rights abuses by Israel. Yes, they did, and my senators were not on the list. So I took the time to write to Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio and condemn him for not supporting peace, for not pushing for a ceasefire, for not doing anything except running for senator from Ohio and asking for money from me. He's not doing a damn thing. I have in the past written to our other illustrious senator, Senator Vance. And before his appearance on the scene, I used to write to his predecessor. Yes, I'd write to Republicans, Democrats, I don't care who they are. They're supposed to be representing me in Ohio. And nobody is doing it right now. Nobody. So there's a little bit of movement, and I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's Sunday now. This was written yesterday. Probably all the numbers have changed, but what you can do is contact your representatives and senators and keep pushing for peace. You can't keep a whole culture, civilization, state like animals in a zoo. Animals in a zoo are treated better than the people in Palestine right now. So express your feelings, write to them, call if that's what your thing is, tell them off, because they're going to be changing their opinions the more pressure they hear. Take it from me. I lived through the Nixon era, watching the Vietnam War on the TV every night at supper time, seeing the Vietnamese monks set themselves on fire, seeing the campuses start to alight with protests, seeing people across the country saying, no, we're not sending more men to be slaughtered in Vietnam. It takes time, it takes commitment, it takes action, and we have to do it. We cannot let up. Otherwise, it's going to turn into something terrifying over there, with more and more countries embroiled in all of this weaponry. See what I mean? January meltdown. All right, that's all I want to say about Gaza. Let's move on to the next story. Across social media, more and more friends who have not had COVID are suddenly finding themselves with COVID this season. The new strains are more and more infectious. It's been happening across the history of this terrible little thing, this virus thing that is still killing people, and it's over 2,000 a week. Well, let's just read this article and find out what's going on. This is from KFF Health News. Emergency or not, COVID is still killing people. Here's what doctors advise to stay safe. With around 20,000 people dying of COVID in the United States since the start of October, and tens of thousands more abroad, the COVID pandemic clearly isn't over. However, the crisis response is, since the World Health Organization and the Biden administration ended their declared health emergencies last year. Let's not confuse the terms pandemic and emergency. As Abrar Karan, an infectious disease physician and researcher at Stanford University, said, the pandemic is over until you are scrunched in bed feeling terrible. Pandemics are defined by neither time nor severity, but rather by large numbers of ongoing infections worldwide. Emergencies are acute and declared to trigger an urgent response. Ending the official emergency, i.e., the COVID response, shifted the responsibility for curbing COVID from leaders who didn't do a great job, did they, to the public who are doing nothing. In the United States, it meant, for example, that the government largely stopped covering the cost of COVID tests and vaccines. Now, who are the people who are most likely to get infected? It's those who are out and about doing things in service of other people, who see large numbers of the public every day. Those people may or may not have health care. They certainly can't afford to go get tested, and they can't afford to stay home from work. So what we have set up is a system of constant reinfection. Unless you are privileged, like me. Yes, I am privileged to be retired, living on a fixed income, in a house that I've almost paid for and will soon. And I don't have to go anywhere. I pay other people to pick up groceries and deliver them to me. I shop for things that I need on eBay, and likewise, that comes to me. I recycle the packaging from all those things that come in. And I totally have been planning all my life for ending my days as a reclusive artist, locked up in my garret, doing my art, looking out at humanity and going, rah, rah, rah. Little did I know that there would be YouTube in my future. Little did I know that there would be a mass global infection that made it completely unsafe for people who have lung conditions like moi, who are obese like moi, who are scared to death of getting anything that could end their life before they're ready to go. And I'm not ready to go. I'm not. I got more drawings to do. I got more videos to record. I got time ahead of me, as long as I don't get COVID. So that's my rant on COVID. Back to the article. The virus is still infecting people. Alert! Indeed, it is surging right now. With changes in the nature of the pandemic and the response, KFF Health News spoke with doctors and researchers about how to best handle COVID, influenza, and other respiratory ailments spreading this season. Well, I'm not going to read it because you should not have been gathering in groups indoors without filters and filtration systems over the holidays, but you did it anyway. You go to the store and you shop among perfect strangers who may or may not be infectious, and you're not wearing a mask, and neither are they. You are doing it to yourselves, people. Of course, you don't have anyone to guide you, do you? You don't have anyone to support you to say, okay, everybody who gets sick will now get unemployment wages, COVID wages for the time that they take off. And so you call in, you got COVID, you stay home, your groceries and food are delivered to you, and hopefully you'll be okay. Your Paxlovid, of course. Get your Paxlovid, which is only for the wealthy and the privileged, I hear. Fortunately, I have kept myself away from the virus, so I have not had to try to figure out how to get it. I know a lot of people plan ahead and try to find doctors who will prescribe it for them or give them a prescription that they can take overseas because they might not be able to get it then. However, I have a great deal of empathy for those who are out in the world exposed to COVID day in and day out, like teachers, like service workers, like anyone who is out there in the world trying to do their job. Our system of government has not promoted the idea of safety in the workspace from viruses, and you're stuck. I particularly feel deep sadness for my friends who are in the performing arts, who are going out night after night, rehearsing, performing in clubs, on stages that have no air filtration systems. They can't wear masks on stage. Their audience is sitting there breathing at them. They're breathing at the audience. I can't live like that. Maybe if this had happened when I was young, I would have been fearless. But now that I'm old and in the last years of my existence, I want to stretch those years out for as long as I can. And I really am not excited about the latest news with how COVID virus stays in the body. And the more you get infected, the more your body is being changed in ways that are very harmful. I suggest you watch This Week in Virology, or TWIV, as a great source of COVID news based on science. In this week's episode, it was recommended, and this was from someone who was an elder with various conditions, who was trying to plan this next year, and asked, should I be taking the vaccine every 4 months? I feel like I should, because the efficacy starts diminishing after 4 months. And if you are older, you want all the efficacy you can get. They said, yes, every 4 months, get a new shot. So I'm going to be checking that out to see if my Medicare will cover it, and I will let you know. Okay, where are we now? We're not going to read this whole article. I'm trying to skim through a lot this week because there's so much to do. Oh, yes, another horror story that I have brought up before. Ohio poised to become the second state to restrict gender-affirming care for adults. For adults, mind you. And here's a picture of a young man. Ashton Colby is photographed in his apartment in Columbus, Ohio on Thursday, January 18th, 2024. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine announced proposals this month that transgender advocates say could block access to gender-affirming care provided by independent clinics and general practitioners, leaving thousands of adults scrambling for treatment and facing health risks. Colby, 31, fears the clinic where he gets the testosterone that he has taken since age 19 would no longer offer it. All right, damn. 31, started taking it when he was 19, so that's over 10 years. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine announced proposals this month that transgender advocates say could block access. Ashton Colby, 31, fears the clinic where he gets the testosterone he has taken since age 19 would no longer offer it. The transgender Columbus man believes he could eventually be treated by another provider that would meet the new requirements. But even a few months' wait could leave Colby experiencing a menstrual cycle for the first time in many years. Now, that can't be good for him, physically or mentally or emotionally. But this is what Republicans in Ohio think should be taking place. They want to punish transgender people. My mental health has been stressed, Colby said. These are feelings related to being transgender that I have not felt in years, but now I'm throwing into feeling devastated. But now I'm thrown into feeling devastated about my experience as a transgender person. DeWine announced the proposed rules amid a whirl of activity that could push Ohio further than most other states in controlling gender-affirming care and making it just the second to set forth restrictions on adult care. He also signed an executive order to ban gender-affirming surgery for minors, but vetoed a bill that would ban all gender-affirming care for minors. One chamber of the state legislature has already overridden it, and the other is voting January 24th on whether to do so. So that's 2 days from now, this being Monday. Please bombard them, the state Senate of Ohio. I will put a link in the description box below. I don't care where you're from. Send them a comment. Tell them how cruel and mean they are being. Okay, it's the rest of this is just talking about how all of the restrictions and so forth. I'm not going to go into it. The link is here. You can watch it. I just want to know what gives them such a thrill? Do they get off on torturing people who were born differently, in a different position within the gender fluidity of it all? I mean, come on. Go back to childhood. Remember when you were a kid and you were looking around at all the other kids, and there were some who were really over there on the feminine spectrum, or over here on the masculine, or in the middle who were neutral, and some who floated back and forth. And, you know, it was there since childhood. If you didn't see it, your eyes weren't open. I had many friends who were different, and I felt different too. I didn't connect to femininity, but I really didn't want to become masculine. So I sort of stayed in the middle as an artist, writer, scientist. I thought of myself as an occupation rather than a gender as a kid. I did. Anyway, the cruelty, the suffering that this new law is going to cause is terrible. And of course, it will be held up as an example for other states to follow. We got to get these horrible people out of here. Of course, DeWine can't run again because of restrictions. I hear Vivek Ramaswamy is going to run for governor. Oh, wouldn't that be lovely? But I don't think he'd win in Ohio because, quite frankly, he's not pale enough to win. So those are the continuing stories. I wish I wouldn't have to report on them over and over again, but I'm afraid it is going to be happening. We have to mount some kind of defense defense for peace, prosperity. The thing that gets me when I read these stories about military weaponry being used to destroy thousands of people, buildings, homes, hospitals, schools. Couldn't we spend that money on Medicare? Couldn't we please, please, please? If we're going to protest the war, we've got to come up with a vision of what would life be like without war. So let's go to, this is an old story from last year, May 29th. Who else but Senator Bernie Sanders pushing once again for Medicare for all to end totally broken healthcare system. We need to replace the warmongering with caregiving. Instead of giving care for people who've been broken by wars, why not get rid of the wars and provide care so that people are at peace with themselves and not wanting to march off to war? I'd like to sum up the feelings aroused by the 3 stories I reported on today with an exhortation to all for Medicare for all. Think of that change in mentality. That is to seek a system that will provide care, medical, physical, emotional, dental, eyes, all of it for every single person in this country, instead of making weapons and selling them to other countries so that they can use them to destroy thousands of people around the world. It's so much better. It would be, think of what life would have been like during the pandemic if we had had Medicare for all. Everyone knew who their provider was. Everyone had their doctor, their place where they got their health care. There was a system in place. There is no system now. I was seeing a therapist last year, and at the end of the year, suddenly her clinic, her new clinic that she moved to because the old one closed, suddenly found out that I was on Medicare and they didn't have a way to process Medicare patients. And they'll get back to me when she's available. That's my anecdote. I know you have hundreds of anecdotes about your health care and how awful it is in the system these days. It's awful for the people who work in it. It's awful for the people who are using it. And it's not awful for the vulture capitalists who are buying up systems, hospital systems, like they are right here in Akron. Yes, it was announced this week. A vulture capitalist firm is buying Summa healthcare systems here in Akron. Summa used to be City Hospital, where I was born so many years ago. Now I'm going to make sure that none of my future doctor appointments are through Summa. I'm going to move over to Cleveland Clinic, which is also a corporate thing too, but at least it's not run by vulture capitalists. And local politicians smile weakly and say, well, they said that this way they won't lose any jobs. Yeah, how many lives are going to be lost because of the lack of care, the lack of oversight, the tightening of the belt that's going to happen in Summa system, whatever it newly named, new corporate name it's given. Total fake care. All right, I've had it. I really have had it. Feels like I'm back where I started. Here we go round again. Day after day, I get up and I say, I gotta do it again. Where are all the people going? Round and round till they reach the end. One day leading to another. Get up, go out. Do it again, people. Do it again, do it again, do it again. See you next week for issue number 30. Bye.